Listen up because I'm about to drop a bomb that's going to make your head spin right before the biggest night of warfare in WWE history. Tomorrow night at Survivor Series War Games, while everyone is focused on who's going to survive those brutal steel cages, there's a storm brewing that nobody saw coming, and it involves two of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling today. Bronson Reed just looked directly into the soul of Roman Reigns and said 5 words that are going to change absolutely everything, and I guarantee that after you hear what I have to say, you're going to be losing your mind in the comments section telling me whether I'm a genius or whether I've completely lost my grip on reality. You know what really makes me want to flip a table? When people sit there and pretend like Roman Reigns is this immortal deity who can never be touched, never be challenged, and never be dethroned from his precious throne at the top of WWE. Well, I've got news for you that's going to shatter that illusion into a million pieces, and the timing couldn't be more perfect because we're literally hours away from War Games, the most chaotic and unpredictable event of the entire year. But forget about War Games for just a minute, because what Bronson Reed just unleashed is going to have repercussions that echo far beyond tomorrow night, far beyond any cage match, and far beyond anything we've seen in recent WWE history. Let me set the stage for you because context is everything, and if you don't understand where we are right now in the wrestling landscape, you're not going to appreciate the magnitude of what's about to go down. We're on the eve of Survivor Series War Games, an event that has become synonymous with absolute carnage, with bodies being broken, with allegiances being tested, and with the kind of violence that makes casual fans look away and hardcore fans lean in closer to their screens. This is the night where anything can happen, where the rulebook gets thrown out the window, and where chaos reigns supreme. But in the middle of all that chaos, in the middle of all that attention being focused on who's going to survive those demonic structures, Bronson Reed decided that this was the perfect moment to send a message to Roman Reigns that has sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling world. And what was that message? What did Reed say that has everyone from casual viewers to industry veterans buzzing with anticipation and speculation? He looked into that camera with the kind of intensity that makes your blood run cold and he declared, with absolute certainty and unwavering conviction, "I'll show you who's boss." 5 simple words that carry the weight of 1,000 promises, 1,000 threats, and 1,000 possibilities. 5 words that have the potential to reshape the entire power structure of WWE. 5 words that Roman Reigns can't ignore, can't laugh off, and can't dismiss as the desperate ramblings of someone who doesn't belong in his stratosphere. Now before you rush to the comments to tell me that I'm overreacting or that I'm reading too much into a simple promo, let me walk you through exactly why this matters more than anything else happening right now in professional wrestling. Roman Reigns has been the undisputed king of WWE for what feels like an eternity. He's held championships for longer than some wrestlers' entire careers. He's beaten every legend, every young upstart, and every challenger that WWE has thrown at him. He's created this entire persona around being the tribal chief, the head of the table, the undisputed Universal Champion, and the man who demands acknowledgement from everyone who crosses his path. And you know what? It's been incredible television. The man has evolved from being the most booed babyface in WWE history to arguably the most compelling character the company has produced in the modern era. But here's the ugly truth that nobody wants to admit because they're too busy riding the Roman Reigns bandwagon. The same thing that happens to every dominant champion throughout history is starting to happen to Roman. The victories are starting to feel predictable. The challengers are starting to feel recycled. The storylines are starting to feel repetitive. And most damaging of all, the fans are starting to tune out because they've seen this movie so many times that they can recite every line before it's spoken. They know Roman is going to overcome the odds. They know he's going to hit that spear. They know he's going to get his hand raised at the end of the night. And when you know the ending before the story even begins, why would you invest your time, your energy, and your emotional capital into watching it unfold? That's exactly where Bronson Reed becomes not just important, but absolutely essential to the future of WWE. This man represents something that Roman Reigns hasn't faced in a very long time: genuine unpredictability. When Reed says he's going to show Roman who's boss, you actually believe that he might be able to back it up, and that belief is the most valuable commodity in all of professional wrestling. It's the thing that gets people to tune in. It's the thing that gets people talking on social media. It's the thing that creates those water cooler moments where everyone wants to discuss what happened and what might happen next. And heading into War Games, at a moment when WWE should be focused entirely on those matches, the fact that everyone is talking about Reed versus Reigns tells you everything you need to know about how hot this situation has become. Let me break down for you exactly who Bronson Reed is for those of you who might not have been paying close enough attention to his rise through the ranks. This isn't some developmental project who just got called up from the Performance Center last week. This isn't a pretty face who's getting pushed because he has the corporate look that WWE traditionally favors. This isn't somebody's nephew or cousin riding the coattails of family legacy. Bronson Reed is a legitimate, battle-tested warrior who has paid his dues in every promotion imaginable, who has proven himself in NXT where he was an absolutely dominant North American champion, who got released by WWE and had to claw his way back through sheer determination and undeniable talent, and who has spent the last several months systematically destroying everyone and anyone who has been foolish enough to step into his path. The man weighs 330 pounds of pure muscle and aggression, but moves like someone who weighs half that much. He's launching himself off the top rope with sentence that would literally kill a normal human being if they landed on them. He's throwing people around the ring like they're children's toys. He's delivering powerbombs and tsunamis and all manner of devastating offense that makes you wince every single time you see it because it looks absolutely brutal. But more than just his physical capabilities, more than just his impressive moveset, what makes Bronson Reed special is the aura he brings to everything he does. There's a genuine menace about him. There's a real sense of danger that emanates from his presence. When he walks to that ring, you don't see a performer playing a character, you see a man who looks like he genuinely wants to hurt people, and that authenticity is something you simply cannot teach or manufacture. So when this 330-pound wrecking ball of destruction looks into the camera and tells Roman Reigns that he's going to show him who's boss, it hits different than when 99% of the roster makes similar proclamations. Because with Reed, you can actually visualize it happening. You can actually see in your mind's eye how he could physically dominate Roman Reigns in a way that nobody has been able to do during this entire historic title reign. You can imagine Reed catching Roman in midair during a Superman punch attempt and just driving him straight through the canvas. You can picture Reed no-selling Roman's offense and walking through his attacks like they're nothing more than minor inconveniences. You can envision Reed standing over a fallen Roman Reigns, arms raised in victory, as the entire WWE universe sits in stunned silence trying to process what they just witnessed. And here's where the War Games factor becomes absolutely crucial to understanding the full picture of what's happening here. Tomorrow night, when that event takes place, there are going to be multiple matches happening simultaneously in those two rings surrounded by that unforgiving steel cage. There's going to be chaos everywhere you look. There's going to be carnage and bloodshed and moments of absolute insanity that people will be talking about for years to come. But in the midst of all that chaos, what if Bronson Reed does something that makes everyone forget about whatever else happened that night? What if Reed uses War Games as his platform to send an even stronger message to Roman Reigns? What if he delivers such a statement performance that by the time the dust settles and the show goes off the air, the only thing anyone can talk about is what Reed did and what it means for his inevitable collision course with the Tribal Chief? Think about the genius of the timing here. Reed didn't wait until after War Games to issue his challenge. He didn't wait for a quiet moment on Raw or SmackDown when he could have Roman's full attention. He chose to drop this bomb right before the biggest event of the season, right when everyone's eyes are going to be watching, right when the entire wrestling world is paying attention to WWE. That takes guts. That takes confidence. That takes the kind of swagger that only comes from someone who genuinely believes they're destined for greatness and isn't willing to wait their turn or play the political games that so many others get caught up in. But let's dig even deeper into what Reed actually means when he says he'll show Roman who's boss, because there are layers upon layers to this statement that go far beyond just a simple challenge for a championship match. In the world of professional wrestling, especially in WWE, being the boss isn't just about winning matches or holding titles or having your face on merchandise. Being the boss means having power. It means having control over your own destiny. It means having the ability to influence decisions, to shape storylines, and to determine who gets opportunities and who gets left behind. Roman Reigns has had that kind of power for years now. He's essentially become untouchable within the company hierarchy. He gets to decide how his matches are structured. He gets to approve his opponents. He works a lighter schedule than almost anyone else on the roster. He has Paul Heyman by his side to do most of the talking. He's built an empire within WWE where he is the undisputed ruler, and everyone else is just a subject in his kingdom. When Bronson Reed says he's going to show Roman who's boss, he's not just talking about pinning him for a 3 count or making him submit in the middle of the ring. He's talking about dismantling that entire power structure. He's talking about proving that Roman's dominance is built on a foundation of smoke and mirrors that can be demolished by the right person with the right motivation and the right ruthless aggression. He's talking about taking everything that Roman has built over the past few years and burning it to the ground, then standing in the ashes as the new alpha male of WWE. That's not just confidence, that's borderline insanity, and yet somehow when Reed says it, you don't dismiss it as the ramblings of a delusional challenger. You actually start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he's right. Now I can already hear some of you screaming at your screens that there's no way WWE would ever pull the trigger on Bronson Reed over Roman Reigns. You're telling me that Roman is their biggest star, their most reliable draw, their meal ticket who sells merchandise and drives television ratings and makes shareholders happy. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're completely wrong about that assessment. Roman Reigns is incredibly valuable to WWE. The man has proven time and time again that he can carry the load, that he can be the face of the company, and that he can deliver in the biggest moments when it matters most. Taking the championship off of Roman Reigns isn't a decision that should be made lightly, and it's not something that WWE should do just for the sake of doing something different. But here's the counter-argument that I need you to really hear and digest because it's the most important point I'm going to make in this entire discussion. How much longer can WWE keep running the exact same playbook before it completely stops working? How many more times can we watch Roman Reigns defeat challenger after challenger in increasingly predictable fashion before people just stop caring altogether? There's a concept called the law of diminishing returns, and it applies to everything in life including professional wrestling. The first time Roman beat a top challenger, it felt huge and important and significant. The 10th time, it still felt pretty big. The 50th time, people started getting a little bored. And now, after years and years of the same pattern repeating itself over and over again, we've reached a point where a large portion of the audience already knows how every Roman Reigns match is going to end before the opening bell even rings. That's not sustainable long-term, and WWE knows it even if they're reluctant to admit it publicly. Every time Roman wins, it becomes incrementally less special. Every time he overcomes the odds against a new challenger, the triumph means slightly less than it did the time before. Eventually, if this pattern continues without interruption, without surprise, without something genuinely shocking happening to shake up the status quo, people are going to stop investing in Roman Reigns matches completely. They'll check their phones during his segments. They'll go to the bathroom during his entrances. They'll skip past his promos when watching on streaming services. And once you lose that audience engagement, it's incredibly difficult to get it back. That's where someone like Bronson Reed becomes more valuable than gold. He represents hope for everyone who's desperate to see something different. He represents the possibility that maybe the ending isn't predetermined this time. He represents genuine uncertainty in a landscape that has become far too certain and far too predictable. And the way he carries himself, the way he talks, the way he performs, and the way he's been protected and pushed by WWE creative suggests that the company understands what they have with him. They understand that Reed could be the spark that reignites interest in the main event scene. They understand that putting Reed in a position to genuinely threaten Roman's dominance could create the kind of must-see television that WWE desperately needs right now. And let's talk about the physicality of this matchup because it's absolutely crucial to understanding why this works so well and why fans are so excited about the prospect of seeing these two collide. Roman Reigns has been booked as an unstoppable force for so long that we've almost forgotten that underneath all the character work and all the storytelling, he's still just a man who can be hurt and beaten and made to look vulnerable. The problem is that most of the people WWE has put in front of Roman haven't had the physical presence necessary to make that vulnerability feel real and believable. Don't get me wrong, Roman has had incredible matches with phenomenal athletes like AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and countless others. But none of those guys look like they could physically overpower Roman Reigns in the way that would truly rock him to his core and make him question whether he's actually as invincible as he believes himself to be. Bronson Reed completely changes that dynamic. When you see these two standing face to face, you don't see a typical David versus Goliath story where the smaller, quicker guy has to use speed and cunning to overcome the larger opponent. You see two absolute monsters who both look like they could tear each other apart with their bare hands. You see a matchup where pure power is going to clash with pure power, where neither man is going to be able to rely on a size advantage, and where the outcome genuinely feels uncertain because both competitors look equally capable of destroying the other on any given night. That believability factor is absolutely essential to making this feud work on the level that it needs to work, and it's something that's been missing from Roman's title reign for far too long. Think about some of the most iconic moments in wrestling history, the moments that people still talk about decades later, the moments that defined entire eras of the business. Almost without exception, those moments involved a challenger who felt like a legitimate threat to the established champion. When Stone Cold Steve Austin was feuding with Mr. McMahon, it worked because Austin felt genuinely dangerous and unpredictable and capable of doing anything at any moment. When Daniel Bryan was fighting his way to the top against The Authority, it resonated because he represented something that the corporate machine couldn't control or contain. When CM Punk delivered his pipe bomb promo and started his rise to the championship, it captivated audiences because it felt real and unscripted and like we were seeing something that WWE didn't want us to see. Bronson Reed challenging Roman Reigns has the potential to tap into that same energy, that same lightning in a bottle that creates those transcendent moments. If WWE handles this correctly, if they give it the time and attention and creative investment that it deserves, this could be one of those feuds that people look back on years from now as a turning point for the entire company. It could be the moment where WWE proved they were willing to take real risks again. It could be the story that created a new main event star who can carry the company for the next decade. It could be the angle that reminded everyone why they fell in love with professional wrestling in the first place. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is something that a lot of people aren't talking about but absolutely should be. Roman Reigns has spent literal years building this entire character around family, around legacy, around the concept of being the head of the table and demanding acknowledgement from everyone in his bloodline and everyone in WWE. He's created this mythology where respecting the tribal chief is the most important thing anyone can do, and he's gotten the entire WWE universe to buy into that mythology whether they love him or hate him or fall somewhere in between. His character is built on respect, on tradition, on the idea that there's a hierarchy that must be maintained at all costs. Now imagine what happens when someone comes along who doesn't give a single damn about any of that. Imagine what happens when a force of nature like Bronson Reed shows up and says that your family legacy means absolutely nothing to him, that your titles and accolades are just pieces of metal and leather that can be taken away, and that the only thing that truly matters in this business is who's the toughest, meanest, most dangerous person in the room when all the talking stops and the real violence begins. That fundamental clash of philosophies creates such a compelling dynamic because it forces Roman Reigns out of his comfort zone. He can't manipulate Reed with mind games. He can't intimidate Reed with threats about the bloodline. He can't buy Reed off or make him acknowledge the tribal chief through political maneuvering backstage. Bronson Reed is essentially creating an entirely new game with entirely new rules, and in this game, all of Roman's advantages disappear. There's no Paul Heyman to talk his way out of situations. There's no GUSO or Solo Sikoa to run interference when things get tough. There's no elaborate strategy or master plan that can prepare you for what happens when a 330-pound human wrecking ball decides that he's going to go through you regardless of the consequences. This strips everything down to its most primal level, and that's exactly the kind of challenge that Roman Reigns hasn't faced during this entire run. He's been allowed to operate in this elevated space where he's more than just a wrestler, he's a character, he's a story, he's a concept. But Reed is dragging him back down to earth and forcing him to remember that at the end of the day, this business is about who can fight and who can survive. Let's also address the reality of WWE's current situation and why now is the perfect time for them to seriously consider pushing someone like Bronson Reed into the main event stratosphere. The company is at a critical juncture where they need to start thinking about succession planning. Roman Reigns isn't going to wrestle full-time forever. Whether it's next year or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, there's going to come a point where Roman steps back from the active roster, and when that happens, WWE needs to have legitimate main event stars ready to fill that massive void. They can't just hope that someone emerges organically. They need to actively build and invest in the next generation of top guys who can carry the company when the current generation eventually moves on. The way Bronson Reed is being positioned right now suggests that WWE sees him as a crucial part of that future. They're not treating him like a placeholder opponent for Roman. They're not treating him like a transitional challenger who's just there to keep Roman busy until the next WrestleMania season rolls around. They're treating him like someone who matters, someone who's important, someone who could genuinely become one of the pillars that WWE is built upon for the next decade. That's huge. That's the kind of long-term thinking that WWE has been criticized for not doing enough of in recent years. And if they follow through on it, if they actually pull the trigger and give Reed the opportunities and the platform he needs to succeed at the highest level, it could pay dividends for years to come. Tomorrow night at War Games, while everyone else is focused on surviving those brutal cage matches and coming out the other side with their bodies intact, you need to keep your eyes on what Bronson Reed does. Watch how he carries himself. Watch how the crowd reacts to him. Watch whether WWE positions him in a way that makes him look like an equal to the established stars or whether they treat him like just another body filling a spot on the card. Because those details are going to tell us everything we need to know about whether this challenge to Roman Reigns is real or whether it's just another tease that WWE has no intention of following through on. And you know what makes me believe that this is different, that this time WWE is actually serious about doing something significant with Bronson Reed? It's the way they've been protecting him. In almost every appearance he's made since returning to the main roster, Reed has looked absolutely dominant. They haven't had him lose to established stars to make those stars look good. They haven't had him get involved in stupid comedy segments that undermine his credibility. They haven't had him do jobs on television to put over people who are supposedly more important than him. Instead, they've kept him strong, they've kept him dangerous, and they've made sure that every time he appears on screen, he looks like the most intimidating person in the entire building. That's not how you book someone unless you have big plans for them. Consider also the meta-narrative at play here, the story behind the story that makes this even more compelling for hardcore fans who follow the business aspect of wrestling. Bronson Reed was released by WWE during the pandemic budget cuts. He was told that his services were no longer required, that the company didn't see a future for him, that he should probably start looking for work elsewhere. That could have been the end of his story. He could have become bitter and resentful. He could have coasted on independent bookings and never reached his full potential. Instead, he used that rejection as fuel. He came back bigger, stronger, more focused, and more determined than ever before. And now he's not just back in WWE, he's in a position where he's challenging for the very top of the mountain. That's a real story of perseverance and redemption that fans can connect with on a deeper level than just the surface-level storyline we see on television. When Reed looks Roman Reigns in the eye and says, "I'll show you who's boss," he's not just speaking as his character. He's speaking as Bronson Reed, the person, the performer who was cast aside and counted out and told he wasn't good enough, who fought his way back and proved everyone wrong. There's power in that authenticity, and it comes through in every word he says and every move he makes. You can't fake that kind of hunger. You can't manufacture that kind of determination. And that's exactly what makes Reed so dangerous to Roman Reigns' reign of dominance. Now let's talk about what this means for War Games specifically and how tomorrow night could set the stage for everything that comes after. War Games is unlike any other event on the WWE calendar. It's not just another pay-per-view with a collection of singles matches and tag matches. It's two teams entering two rings surrounded by one cage, with members entering at timed intervals until everyone is in there at once, creating absolute chaos. It's the kind of environment where anything can happen, where plans go out the window immediately, and where the person who can adapt and survive and thrive in chaos comes out on top. Does that sound like anyone we've been talking about? Because to me, that sounds exactly like Bronson Reed's kind of environment. Imagine Reed entering that War Games match and just destroying everything in his path. Imagine him hitting tsunamis on multiple opponents. Imagine him climbing to the top of the cage and launching himself onto a pile of bodies below. Imagine him being the last person standing when all is said and done, covered in sweat and maybe blood, arms raised in victory, cementing himself as the most dangerous person in all of WWE heading into whatever comes next. And then imagine the cameras cutting to Roman Reigns watching backstage, seeing what Reed just did, and for the first time in years having a look of genuine concern cross his face because he realizes that this isn't just another challenger making empty threats. This is a legitimate monster who's coming for everything Roman has built, and there might not be anything the tribal chief can do to stop it. That's the kind of moment that creates stars. That's the kind of storytelling that makes people cancel their plans so they can stay home and watch what happens next. That's the kind of investment in a performer that WWE needs to be making if they want to remain relevant and successful in an increasingly competitive wrestling landscape. And the best part is, we're about to find out if WWE has the guts to actually go through with it or if they're going to chicken out at the last second and revert back to the same old patterns that have been holding them back. So here's what I need you to do. Tomorrow night when you're watching Survivor Series War Games, don't just watch the matches passively like you're staring at a television screen waiting to be entertained. Watch actively. Pay attention to how Bronson Reed is positioned and presented. Listen to how the commentators talk about him. Notice whether the crowd is responding to him the way WWE needs them to respond if this push is going to work. And then come back to the comments section on this video and tell me whether you think WWE is actually going to pull the trigger on Reed versus Reigns or whether this is going to be another case of them teasing something great only to pull the rug out from under us at the last possible moment. Because let me be crystal clear about something. This isn't just about one match or one feud or one championship. This is about the direction of WWE for the next several years. This is about whether the company is willing to create new stars or whether they're going to keep recycling the same few people until everyone gets bored and tunes out. This is about whether WWE understands that the audience is desperate for something fresh and unpredictable and exciting, or whether they're going to keep playing it safe until playing it safe stops working altogether. Bronson Reed's challenge to Roman Reigns is a litmus test for everything WWE claims to be about right now under Triple H's creative leadership. And that's what makes this so nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time. We're at a genuine crossroads. We're at a moment where WWE could make a decision that elevates them to heights we haven't seen in years, or they could make a decision that confirms all of our worst fears about their inability to change and evolve. Bronson Reed has done his part. He's shown up, he's performed at an elite level, he's gotten himself over with the audience, and he's issued a challenge that has captured the imagination of the entire wrestling world. Now it's up to WWE to decide whether they're going to reward that hard work and that dedication and that undeniable talent by giving Reed the opportunity he's earned, or whether they're going to waste it. I choose to believe that WWE is going to do the right thing here. I choose to believe that they see the same potential in Bronson Reed that so many of us fans see. I choose to believe that they understand the value of creating new stars and taking calculated risks that could pay off massively if executed properly. But believing and knowing are two different things, and we won't know for sure until we see how this plays out over the coming weeks and months. What we do know is that Bronson Reed has sent a message to Roman Reigns that cannot be ignored, cannot be dismissed, and cannot be forgotten. He's declared war on the most dominant champion in modern WWE history, and he's done it at the perfect moment when all eyes are on WWE heading into one of their biggest shows of the year. So as we sit here on the eve of Survivor Series War Games, as we prepare to watch some of the most brutal and chaotic matches that WWE has to offer, remember that there's a bigger story brewing beneath the surface. Remember that Bronson Reed is waiting in the wings, ready to show Roman Reigns and everyone else who's really boss. Remember that change is coming whether some people are ready for it or not. And most importantly, remember that this is exactly why we watch wrestling in the first place, for those moments when something genuinely exciting and unpredictable is about to happen and we get to be there to witness it all unfold. The stage is set. The challenge has been issued. Now we wait to see if WWE has the courage to follow through and give us the moment that this situation deserves. Get in those comments right now and tell me if you're ready for Bronson Reed to dethrone Roman Reigns or if you think I've lost my damn mind for even suggesting it's possible.